do these kinds of videos because, well, it's not the kind of channel my channel is, to be honest, but since I really enjoyed this movie so very much, and I bet lots of other people loved it too. I've seen it so far. I mean, it's the second day of it being out. Of course, I'm talking about Beetlejuice. Yesterday, me and a friend were able to see it yesterday in theaters, and shockingly, there wasn't many people in the theater we were in. But since even though I don't really do these kind of, I've never really done one of these kind of videos, I'm gonna do a full review and my thoughts and everything about the movie. So yes, definitely spoilers ahead. So if you have not seen it, which probably lots of people haven't, since this is the second day of it being out, but so if you haven't, and for some reason you just want to see this for no reason, like, all right, I don't care, then go ahead. I don't. It's your idea, it's your choice, but I'm just gonna dive on in with the first thing I'm talking about. Alright, so the first thing that we talked about is like the returning cast, like with Michael Keane, Catherine O'Hara, and Winona Ryder in it. A few others, of course, are not in it because if you've seen it or seen the trailers or anything, you know for sure why they haven't. And maybe Michael Keane, since he was only in 17 minutes of the original one, which is kind of weird. This man was in so much of it, and it was amazing. He played an amazing role for this. I mean, he delivered so much, and he was definitely the ghost was the most again, and he really definitely fit into the look after 36 years, and his birthday was this last Thursday, and being 73, and still fitting in your most, what I want to say is your most iconic character. You did amazing. Next to Winona Ryder as Lydia Deeds. Okay, she was kind of an interesting character in this, for this one, for sure. Like, I feel like, I don't want to call it schizophrenia for sure, but near the beginning of the movie, in a way, she kind of hallucinating, kind of thinking she sees Beetlejuice in different places and here and there. Even though we find out later that he has been kind of stalking her in a way, so she's not really imagining this. But according to her daughter Astrid, which I'll get to her and everything about that later, that everything she talks about is a real ghost and all this aren't real and everything. Yeah, I don't believe. You should believe that what you want to call that and stupid crap you want to call it. But and also, of course, what I want to call who really you should have people should have Lydia and a few others should have believed was Captain O'Hara's character Delia Deeds, who believe me whenever she said a few either some things here and there in the movie. I was laughing so hard in the theater. I loved it. She was more interesting for sure, and for some reason, in the theater, I think one of the times when she appeared on screen, someone in the theater said, "That's the mom from Home Alone." And I'm thinking, well, okay, if that's just the thing you've seen her in, but yeah, but she was actually pretty good. And then, I mean, she was a little stupid in a way because she does die in this movie, and it was kind of stupid where she's trying to figure out to contain the loss of her husband, and then she buys snakes that she said specifically she didn't want actual poisonous ones, but then she dies by finding out they're poisonous, and she gets bitten and taken there, trying to demand when she's down there that she should not be there, she needs to be up there. There's also a main thing that I want to agree with her on this, that Lydia should have listened to her about Roy, also a character I'll get to soon, one of the newer characters, who was not that really good of a person, to be honest. And that's something that, like, from lots of things, Delia was actually a really good character in this one. And what the yeah, so now I'm going to move on to people who like returning I mean, not returning, to like new people in this movie. All right, but first, of course, we have Astrid, played by, well, I think we should all know who she is by now. I'm Jenna Ortega, who this is. I'll be like, some people will say online how this is basically just her being Wednesday again. I mean, to be honest, it's not completely false, except for she does kind of follow something similar to how her mom does in the movie with love interest, because the dude Jeremy, I think he's too small in the poster to really see him, but yeah, in the trailer you don't see much of him, but he seems like a kind of normal guy. But in the movie we find out that he's been dead for 23 years, and just like how in the first movie the Maylands can't leave their house, or now that they're dead, he can't he can't go past the fence of his house, and it's kind of a dark way of how he died. It was not of what's the no like if people remember this character, how the annoying business saleswoman, I'm trying to remember her name out, frick, whatever, who told Lydia about the whole story that he something about he I can't remember everything about his story, but no, he ended up killing his parents or something, and then he tried to go away from the cops when they tried to get him. He slipped and fell off the tree house, and it was a very interesting thing. But believe me, he was a very interesting character, and I was kind of happy to see what I want to say looked like him getting burned to a crisp in the depths of hell is what it looks like. I'm not sure for sure, but Beetlejuice, thank you for getting rid of that dude. He was Okay, back to Astrid though. Astrid, she was a pretty good character to be honest. Yeah, she did. I feel like the costume she wears and like to the later climax of the movie is actually pretty good, and it kind of reminds me of some of the outfits that Lydia wore in the first movie, but not exactly completely. But she was a pretty good character to be honest. But just maybe not made some of the best decisions in the movie to be honest. And also, why do you hate having Winona Ryder as your mother in a film? Right, next we're going to talk about Justin Theroux's character, Roy, aka the dude I talked about you from earlier a little bit. And believe me, this dude, I'm gonna hand it to Justin for this dude for playing. He did this. He played the best love to hate care. You hate him so much that you love him for some reason because he was so pathetic in this movie. And also, what kind of guy? And he did the stupidest thing at Lydia Dad's Charles Deeds' funeral. He proposed to Lydia. What kind of an imbecile does that? At least, well, I mean, later on in the movie, when in the wedding scene, Beetlejuice puts truth, kind of like puts a shot, kind of, of truth serum into him, and then we find out his all lies and everything, and that he only was gonna marry Lydia for then he could be more famous and all that, and he tries to exploit a weak woman or something. Yeah, dude. Yeah, I feel like Lydia. I feel like you should have already known it when in the beginning when he completely throws away your pills, and then he only cares about the show. This is basically, and I'm just glad that at the end, him along with Beetlejuice's ex-wife, which I'll get to her soon, I'll just get eaten by one of the sandworms because this dude he was a jerk. To be honest, once we found out his true identity and everything, I'm so glad Lydia punched him out of oblivion basically in a way, and then got eaten by a sandworm. Alright, next is Willem Dafoe's character, which I honestly, he was hilarious whenever the dude was on screen. Wolf Jackson, he's basically an actor in the afterlife who's trying to be a cop. And whenever you see this dude, I couldn't help but laugh because there was one scene when he was interrogating the Bob character. I'll get to him as well later, but I found it hilarious because of how he treated him, but it was just kind of funny because, I mean, he called Beetlejuice Mr. Juice. Is Beetle his first name? I don't know for sure about that, but whenever Willem Dafoe plays a character, it's really good. And this was a perfect example of that. Even though he didn't get as much screen time as I did, but whenever he appeared on screen, I loved it. And he might have not been a main character, but he was a really funny character. Next is Beetlejuice's ex-wife, Dolores. I'm trying to point. I wish I had a better picture of this, but even though she didn't have any speaking roles, she did have some scenes. And then, okay, I was actually really excited when I first saw on there because she, since the trailer had this song and everything else, and I started just loving listening to it. Tragedy by the Bee Gees. She was a very interesting character for sure. Her origin and everything. Since she didn't get many speaking lines, she was. She did suck the living soul out of poor Bob, which he didn't deserve for that because he didn't do much to deserve anything like that. But she was a very interesting character for sure. But I could tell Beetlejuice, I can understand why Beetlejuice would try to run away because of how pissed she is now in this one. But she is a bit. I mean, the dress she gets kind of reminds me of some of the clothing and stuff that Lydia wore in the first movie. That's for sure. But she is honestly kind of an interesting character that I feel like if she had more screen time, she would have been better. But I still like the character in general. Next, I want to say like I when I found out about this detail that was actually happening in the movie, I was so happy. Like in the first movie, how they have the sandworms be claymation, not some other rip off, some weird thing. It looked really cool. And then when I found out that they weren't actually going to do CGI and they were going to stay with that in the second one, that was actually good because I didn't know what, because when I saw that on the screen, I'm like, oh, okay, this is gonna be good because this actually looks good compared to some other things that Hollywood has. Because that entire scene was actually, even though it was short, it was actually really cool. Because wow, they know how to. Tim Burton had maybe have a twisted mind, but that twisted mind shows him some really cool things with everything. And dude, I'm hoping. I know this probably might not happen, but crossing fingers he wins Best Director for the Oscars for this movie, because, or makeup or something, because man, this movie was really good for that reason. Next, I want to say is the overall story. The first one didn't have much of a really interest of like a in, intense story or anything. It was mainly of how the Maitlands. I mean, it would have been cool if Alec Baldwin. Oh, never mind. Sorry. If how the Maitlands are dealing with how they're dead and they're trying to scare away the deeds, and then they learned, and then they about Beetlejuice and all that and everything. But this movie shows with death and loss and grief and a few other things. It shows more in depths. I mean, that's what happens when you add like 20 more minutes in this movie than the original. I mean, it was worth it because this movie did have a really, some parts of it didn't make much sense, but the story in general was a really interesting story. The ending I didn't exactly expect. There were some parts that were kind of interesting, but in general, the story was really good. That's actually just about to be wrap it up. I just want to say that you guys, if you are a Beetlejuice fan or you're curious on what exactly I'm talking about, then I highly recommend that you should see Beetlejuice. That's now playing in theaters rated PG-13 in any theater you can find. All right, bye bye.